This is part 4 of setting up window datasets in vsHome. We're going to continue by editing the 70mm window system we have been creating during this series of videos. Now, there are a couple of different ways to set up the costings within window datasets. You can either set up the costing overall from within the costs folder, or you can go into each window type and set up the costs from within there. For this tutorial, I will be setting up the costs overall. We believe this to be the easiest way to manage costings. As mentioned in parts 1 to 3, we are using style matrices for our costs. So I'm going to go straight in to the costs folder and expand on style matrices. I will explain the other subfolders once we have created the matrices. And within this folder, you can create numerous matrices for all the different types and styles of windows and doors. During this video, I will be creating matrices for casements with and without openers, single doors, double or French doors, 2-pane patio doors, and 3-pane bifold doors. These are purely for tutorial purposes, and you will need to build on your library of matrices in order to allow for all the different types and styles of windows and doors that you intend to sell, ensuring to check all dimensions and costs with your manufacturer. All values added into these style matrices relate to the cost that you buy the windows in from your manufacturer, not including the glass. The software will then add relevant markups you have set up within the cost entities area of the preferences in order to calculate your final selling price. Glazing costs can also be added to specific glazing materials within the material user libraries area of the preferences. So as you can see, I have opened matrix A here, and I'm going to use this first matrix for casements. I'm just going to expand this window so we can get a better view of the matrix. Now, the first thing we need to do is decide on the data type for the matrix by using the drop-down menu provided, located at the top of the window here. Matrices can be based on width by height, or just by width, or just by height, or they can be based on width and height added together. I'm going to leave it set to the default width by height option. So now what we need to do is adjust the range. There are two ways to do this. You can either do it manually by clicking on the cell and editing the figure, or you can select the Advanced button in the bottom right hand corner and change the dimensions this way. I'm going to use the Advanced tools and input the lowest width of 200, highest width 1800, interval of 100, and then amend the lowest height to 400, highest height 2100 is fine, again with an interval of 100. And then click apply, then press close, and you can see the range has been adjusted. Now for the values within the table, again there are a few ways to do this. You can fill in the data one cell at a time, or you can copy and paste the data from Excel, providing the number of cells are matching. You can paste using the Paste from Clipboard button along the bottom of the matrix here. You can also input the 4 corner values into the table and use the Interpolate from 4 corner values button along the bottom here. For this matrix, I am going to show you how the copy and paste function works. So I'm just going to switch over to Excel, where I have the values in a matching table. Okay, so now I've got Excel open. All you need to do is select the values and then copy. And then if we just go back into the matrix in vsHome, ensure that the top left cell is selected, and then paste using the Paste from Clipboard button along the bottom. The Paste Data into Matrix window will then appear, which has a series of options which remove blank columns and rows. allow for column and row headers, and also an option to invert the data, or in other words, switch the columns to rows and vice versa. Finally, the header value units can be switched from millimeters to centimeters or meters. There is also an option to adjust the price factor. In this case, I'm just going to leave the default options selected and hit OK. And there you go. Now we have applied the values, we can move on to the Associated Styles tab at the top and choose the styles we want to associate with this matrix. To link styles to the matrix, select the Link More Styles button along the bottom. You can then filter what type of frames you would like to select from by choosing your options within the Unit Type section. You can also refine the filter based on the number of panels wide and number of panels high, style codes, or by filtering out any styles which have already been linked to this matrix or any of the matrices. So having filtered on casements and one panel wide, I'm going to hit apply, and then I'm going to select a couple of styles. You can select multiple styles by holding down the Control key while selecting and press Add Styles and then close. Before we move on to the second matrix, I will briefly explain the Uplifts and Discount tab along the top here. Here you can decide whether or not to apply discounts to this matrix via the Discount ID drop-down menu. You can also cater for the additional cost relating to foiled or coloured profiles by creating specific finish markups that will only apply to this individual matrix, and this can be done either by way of percentage or by creating a special or dedicated matrix for foiled and coloured options by using this drop down menu here. So you can see when I select by special matrix, the dedicated matrix then appears here. And if I just go back onto the Uplifts and Discount tab, change that back to markup, the tab will then disappear. Now I won't be using this section as I'm going to be using the Finish Markups subfolder here to apply finish markups to the costing section as a whole, and we will get to that shortly. In addition to providing costing, the benefit of creating style matrices allows the software to run legality checks against the frame sizes within the models. This means that warnings will appear if the chosen window layout results in a frame size which is either below or above the range of relevant style matrix. This ensures that when you're creating your models, you don't design something that cannot be costed or manufactured. So having completed the first matrix, you can use the buttons along the bottom here to create new matrix, rename the matrix if you like, duplicate or delete the matrix. So I'm going to hit Create New Matrix, and this time it's going to be for casements with openers. You will see the window for creating a new matrix pops up here, and we can enter the start and end range as well as the interval. So I'm going to input a start range of 400, an end range of 1200 with an interval of 100 and press OK. Now I'm going to adjust the height dimensions using the advanced tool along the bottom here, and I'm going to change the highest height to 2100. Ensure that the intervals are kept at 100, press apply and then close. So for this matrix and all the examples that will follow, I will be using the Interpolate from Four Corner Values button along the bottom here, which is done by entering the 4 corner values of the table and then hitting the button. So I'm going to start by inputting that data. Make sure you press enter on that last cell and then use the Interpolate from Four Corner Values button along the bottom. And you will see the software will then automatically fill out all the other values by calculating the difference between the lowest and the highest value and dividing this by the number of intervals, which results in a consistent increase in the cost from interval to interval. So now we can associate the styles again by hitting Link More Styles. I'm going to select casements and one panel wide, then hit apply. This time I'm selecting a couple of openers. Select Add Styles and close. So now that we have an understanding of the process, I'm going to speed up the video as I enter the data for single doors and double or French doors, 2-pane patio doors and 3-pane bifold doors. Okay, so now all the matrices are in, we can explain the subfolders which appear above the Style Matrices folder. So first we have extra costs, which is an area where bespoke costing items can be added. However, these are required in very specific circumstances, so we are going to skip this area for the sake of this video tutorial. The finish markups, as I mentioned before, is where we can apply markups to the dataset as a whole to cater for the additional cost relating to foiled or coloured profiles. If you do use this section, you will need to remove any finish markups that you have added to the individual style matrices. So I'm going to input some figures here purely for demonstrational purposes. The fabrication costs will allow you to add additional costs to cover various manufacturing processes involved in making the windows, and will only be used if you are using material costs associated with each profile rather than style matrices, which we have not done in this series. Glass decoration costs, we will cover this in a separate video, so for now we're going to skip past this. Solid panels is a section where you can create additional matrices to cover the cost of using solid panels as an alternative to standard windows. These are typically used in gable ends where a timber and clad construction is used in place of shaped gable frames. Finally, I'm going to move up to the discounts and markups folders at the top. These areas are designed to allow window manufacturers to configure their own window datasets with the intention of supplying these datasets to their customers, the installers, to use. Therefore, these areas allow the manufacturers to apply markups and discounts to their costings so that when they are used by the installer, the costings provided by the software reflect the price the installer is buying the window in from the manufacturer. As a result, if the installer is configuring their own window datasets, then they will leave these areas blank in favour of the overall markups, which can be added within the cost entities area of the preferences. Note that filling out both these areas will result in the software applying the markups twice when calculating the final selling price. When adding markups within the window datasets, manufacturers can use the fields provided to set a range of different markups based on specific areas of the window datasets, including door frames, window frames, gable frames, and boundary components, etc. Manufacturers can also create discounts for their window dataset that they will apply to all matrices and material costing where the discount ID has been set to standard. There are also options to customize the discounts so that they only appear to specific areas of the dataset, such as boundary components. So I'm just going to expand the window again, and I'm going to give you an example of a few discounts, and you start that by hitting Create and inserting the description and ID. Select the type boundary components and then input a value of 10%. Now I'm going to create a discount for just casements, starting again by inputting the description, giving it an ID. This time for the discount type, I'm going to select frame, and I can specify using the frame type to apply to drop-down menu and selecting casements. You can further refine the discount items using the items within frame to apply to drop-down menu so that the discount is only applied to the frame and window options or just to the matrices and material costings. I want to apply the discount to all elements relating to casements, so I can leave the default option all selected and then just input a value of 15% and hit OK. Finally, I'm going to create a discount for bifold doors, much the same as the casement discount. Selecting frame from the discount type, then selecting bifold from the frame type to apply to and inputting a discount value of 15% and hitting OK. For the sake of this video though, I'm going to remove all these discounts using the delete function up here and leave markups blank in favour of the overall markups within the cost entities area of the preferences. One more thing to mention is that within each folder relating to the types of windows and doors, such as casements, tilts and turns, doors, etc., within the general properties folder, there is a section called decoding, and you can use this drop-down menu so that all opener casements will be set to fixed when looking for a matrix to apply them to. And the benefit of this is not having to create two matrices for fixed casements and openers. So we have created two matrices, so I'm going to leave it set to no. And as I mentioned at the start of this video, there is also a costing folder within each type of window and door, and when expanded like this, reveals options for creating finished markups, matrices relating to that specific type of window or door. These matrices allow you to input the costing relating to individual elements of the window, such as raked or shaped heads, fixed lights, top or side hung sashes, and when all these matrices are completed, the software will use a combination of matrices to calculate the overall cost for each window, depending on how many sashes or fixed lights are included in the style of that particular window. Okay, so finally, the last thing we want to do, now that we've entered all our matrices in the cost folder, is just hit save, and then save changes to the 70mm window system. For more tutorial videos, visit the support area on our website.